Good morning, dear members. Good morning, CA Manish Garia sir, for joining us today. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Thank you, CA Preeti Savla ma'am, past chairperson of IIRC. Thank you, CA Harshvardhan Bapat sir, for helping us to guide for this topic, which is very difficult and but which has many benefits which we are not aware. So we are excited for today's VCM. Before starting with the introduction for the speaker and the VCM, I would request CA Manish Garia sir to guide us for the future plans which WIRC is working on.
So, good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure always to be at Chembur Study Circle, which is one of the best study circle, and which has shown a path to more other study circles also to how to do the functioning. I still remember 22 years back, CA AR Krishnan, the past convener of Chembur Study Circle, has prepared a SOP for functioning of study circles, and which is still, I feel that it is still valid. And from taking the guidance from him, we have started following the same in JB Nagar also. And now when many study circles started following that SOP, what has been prepared by Krishnan sir, it's really a great contribution, I can say, Chembur Study Circle to all the study circle in our region. So it's always all the stalwarts from Chembur, Nilesh Bhai, Kamlesh Bhai, then Hinesh Doshi, and list is long. I will not take each and every name, but it's really always a pleasure to be at Chembur Study Circle. And the topic also selected today is really important, that income tax and startup is really a people are not aware. So we are finding it tough. That benefit are really important that Harshvardhan is going to take today and guide us. As far as study circle is concerned, Pankaj, what I request is if you can have this kind of newer topic like a startup you have taken today. So it will be really great help to the members because we have to make them future ready. And the future is belongs to technology. And if you can have more and more program of newer opportunities like a startup, like forensic, like any other thing, internal audit and this kind of topic. So it will be great. WIRC has taken various initiatives. I will not go into detail, but most we have come out with 16 different publications which are available for sale at WIRC website, and all topics are all books are really very important and good. So members who want, they can buy the publications. This year we have started under the chairmanship of Preeti Madam. She is a chairperson of study circle committee. We have started 4 new study circles this year. So adding to our study kitty of study circle, and study circle are the backbone of WIRC, what we always believe. And we expect more and more thing from Chembur this year also. So thank you very much, Pankaj. Over to you.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. I request CA Preeti Savla ma'am.
So we welcome Chairman Sir Manish Bhai over here to our study circle, and hope everyone is safe and healthy. And our own member and the past convener Harshvardhan Bapat is today's taking the session. It is a really proud moment that our own members are speaking at our study circle as well as at other study circle, regional and national level. Thank you Manish Bhai for being here at study circle and keep guiding us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words. Before starting with the VCM, I would like to have an introduction for CA Harshvardhan Vivek Bapat sir. He has graduated from Mumbai University in 2012. He is qualified as a chartered accountant in 2013. He's also completed qualified diploma in IFRS conducted by ACCA UK in 2016. He's a qualified DISA in 2016 with All India ranking 4. He's also a registered valuer and member of ICAI RVU. He has done articleship with BK Khare and Company, that's a CA firm from 2011 to 2014. Post qualification experience in BK Khare and Company from 2014 to 2016. Then he joined VA Bapat and Company in 2016. His area of interest are tax litigation and transaction advisory. He's also been convener of our Chembur Study Circle for 2016-17 and 17-18. So with this great massive achievements, I would request C. Harshvardhan sir to take over, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pankaj, for your kind introduction. So the whole topic for today, Pankaj, can you just allow screen sharing? I'll just start presenting side by side. The whole topic for startup and everything today came in a very interesting juncture. First of all, I'd like to thank Manish Bhai, Preeti Madam for gracing us with their presence. And it's good to be speaking at a session where I have met and interacted with personally everybody who is attending right now. It's actually I feel like batting on a home pitch, that kind of a feeling. So I'll keep it a bit light, and the technical part will go in like 5-10 minutes. So the interesting part was that after the boom, recent. Hello, am I audible, Pankaj?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. After the recent boom, and especially after the recent Zomato IPO and IPO which is getting planned by Paytm and everybody. So it's like there are many new startups popping up everywhere. Many startups have already started functioning, and the critical part is that they are all on the technical front. They are IT based, they are bunch of engineers starting together, they are maybe some experienced people who have worked in the industry, and they want to start something of their own. uh, f- like a month back or so, we were invited to present something for a new startup which has come up. And uh, after the uh, meeting had happened, I mean, they were not aware as to what exactly taxation is, or how can they take benefits of. First of all, they were not aware that there are schemes from government which help new companies, innovative companies. So they asked me, okay, can you prepare a sort of a one page, 2-page note that how you can help us into getting more efficient as far as funds are concerned, and how a chartered accountant can help our organization. So the second question was a bit surprising, that they are not even aware ke baba, how to manage their taxes and this and that, but they are also not aware about our presence. So it becomes necessary that we approach or we reach out to various forums, various organizations, to make everybody aware that these schemes are there, and these kind of essential benefits are available to everybody, every startup which qualifies for that. So what I gather is there are basically 3-4 areas in which we can think of helping every startup. And those three are as like identifying the key area and key idea and protecting that idea. Then secondly, as far as the definitions given by DPIIT are concerned, income tax are concerned, the government notifications are concerned, what is exactly a startup, and what are the conditions to be fulfilled to be recognized as a startup first, and how to register a startup in the government portal, Startup India portal. The third one is tax benefits for registered startups. Now the tax benefits, as we all know, they all come with a asterisk mark. The tax benefits also means there are certain tax conditions, some behavioral conditions which are there, which every registered startup who may avail certain benefits under income tax needs to follow. So first of all, the key idea that needs to be protecting. Many a times, these startups, they are not aware of what is the exact idea that they have come up with, what is the value driver in their whole organization, and how to protect that particular thing. Now, it can be anything. It can be now intellectual property we have considered because it all falls under the gamut of intellectual property. Now it can be the conventional ones, the trademarks, the patent, the copyrights, etc. If a startup or anybody is taking any technology or developing any technology, developing a particular brand name, then the first thing that we should be advising them is regarding identifying, first of all, this intellectual property, and secondly, guiding them as to how to protect this particular intellectual property. There are laws, there are guidance is available. If anybody goes to any lawyer or any other professional, then it is simply business for them. But what is missed out is because of the kind of training and the practical approach with tax authorities that we go through as chartered accountants. We are in a key position to tell them, Baba, that this particular intellectual property or this particular thing that you need to protect, and this thing, okay, even if it is not protected properly, there is less of a risk to your business. So normally trademarks, patents, copyrights, they are always there. There are certain laws that protect these conventional trademarks, patent, copyrights. These are like the India Patent Act of 1970, the Patent Rules, Designs Act, Designs Rules, Trademarks Act, Trademarks Rules. The whole startup scheme, the whole Startup India initiative was announced in, if I'm not wrong, January of 2016 by the government, the current government. The Startup India initiative, what the key change that they did as far as IP laws is concerned, that the whole domain of intellectual property and protection of intellectual property in India was given under the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, DPIIT. Because of that, it became really smooth for any new company which is getting recognized as a startup, that to fast track its own intellectual property applications, since they are under the same ministry, along with their if you will see in the form afterwards that they can simply submit the application number and apply for it to get fast tracked under the ministry. So that was one of the key changes as far as the administration was concerned. But there are certain intellectual properties which are beside these conventional trademarks and patents and copyrights that we just saw. Now, for a business to have actual value, we have seen in case of Uber, or where we have seen in the case of even Facebook or Twitter, that the fundraising or the actual value drivers in those particular organizations, yes, the brand is important, the whole UI UX is important, but what the actual driver is the user database, the actual number of users, number of loyal users that are there. That is the actual value driver for these companies, and these per se are not covered under any of these particular acts. But when you go and do a valuation, or when you go and go for a merger sort of a transaction, then the one thing that gets maximum value out of a particular company, an IT based firm, application based firm like this, is the number of loyal users, the number of downloads, the number of subscription based customers for these companies, which are not per se covered under any of these. So in case we have a client which is operating in any of these areas, then the first thing that we should advise them is to how to protect that particular thing. It may not get the customer database, the vendor database, any new process that they have developed, the any talented employees, any website domains that the company has created. It is as part of I think it is as business partners in their growth, as partners in their development. I think we should advise them, we should identify that which is the actual value driver as far as these companies are concerned. Now, how to protect customer database? It can be protection as far as your IT security is concerned, any IT infrastructure is concerned, vendor database. You have a contractual relation, your client may have contractual relations with particular vendors which are not generally available outside. I remember we had consulted to one startup which was operating in Konkan region. And the one peculiar thing about Konkan region is the scattered locations of small villages. But the one fellow who was working there for like 5 to 10 years now, so he developed a database, or he had relationships, contractual relationships with almost some 15 to 20 odd thousand vendors across the whole Konkan belt. So it actually helped us to develop or play on that particular vendor database and their contractual relationships for him to get a good amount of seed funding, a good amount of Series A funding, wherein the actual driver of value was this vendor database and the quality control over those products that are given by various vendors. The processes which are developed by a particular client, employee talent, yes, if any key employee is there, the first thing we can advise is how to protect that particular talent, how to retain that particular talent. We need to have a contractual agreement in place. The time has passed for any verbal or oral commitment, because the market around us is quite cutthroat. If there is a lot of poaching which goes around, if you are not careful, if you don't advise your client to be careful about how to retain their actual talent, if the talent is the value driver, the key people of their organization, then they may lose that talent and get a setback of 5 to 10 years in their whole progress. Next one is the domains, which are quite common. If you want to start a website, you need to buy a domain name. Now, domain names come under all sorts of formats: .com, .co, .in, .net, .org, then all hundreds of different suffixes to those domain names. What is important is that if the domain is going to be a key factor in the whole value or whole operations of your client, it is essential that we tell them, okay, Baba, if you have purchased only .com for a particular domain name, then it is advisable to at least purchase the other suffixes as well, other domain names as well, .in, .co, .in, and so on, so that at least no one else or any competitor or any fraudulent entity purchases a similar domain name with a different ending and takes away the clients or takes away the customers or inquiries that are coming your way, or causes any sort of damage to your reputation. As far as since you are a startup, the name building, brand building is a key factor for any startup. So that's how securing a domain name becomes very crucial in this. Now, there can be n number of other items which are there and which are basically in the form of intangible property, intellectual property. 90% of the value derived over the past 10 years, let's say all the transactions which have happened for private equity, or transactions which have happened for any sort of funding, any sort of QI, qualified institutional placement and all that, the main value driver has always been not your tangible assets or any operations that you have done so far, but the forward looking statement and the value drivers, which are in 90% of the cases intellectual property, they are something which is which normally does not come or appear on our accounting balance sheet, because as we know that internally generated intangible assets are generally not recognized under normal accounting standards. There are a lot of prohibitions on their recognition as well, but we also know that if you are purchasing an intangible asset or intangible asset which was developed by somebody else, then it becomes a key factor in calculating our merger and acquisition or purchase consideration. So these key factors, these operations guys or engineering people who are actually on the field developing a particular product, they are not aware of how to protect these main key value drivers. And it, if not protected on time, then this will definitely result in a setback for them, for a key financial loss, operational loss, and overall the timeline will get disrupted. And since startups operate on a very how do we say it, very tight budget, any operational or uh, delay beyond their initial planning period will result in a lot of loss and a lot of agony for them. So that is the first, how do we identify that, what is the key value driver in this. Now we come to the second part, that as per the government regulations, what has been or how have they defined what is a startup. Now in a general sense, we have seen startup is like a bunch of 5-6 people who are maybe right out of their college, or maybe who have left their jobs and who have started something on their own out of a house of one of those people. किसी के कोई rented अपना शेयर्ड स्पेस वाला, टेबल स्पेस वाला जो रहता है अभी बाहर ऑफिसेस, वहां पे कोई स्टार्ट करता है, दे आर ऑल वेयरिंग ऐसा जीन्स, ये वो, कॉफी, कांस्टेंट वर्किंग 24 hours, and that kind of an image that has come to our mind, that comes to our mind when we say that there is a startup. But normally speaking, if you break down all that into few key points, is that first of all, a startup is something new. That is an inherent idea, something new. It can be a new idea, it can be a new market segment, it can be something which is unexplored, the frontier of our industry right now. This, the second key thing is that there is a lot of risk, there is a high uncertainty that okay, this may or may not work, this may work given XYZ condition. There are lots of ifs and buts in that. The then third condition is that they are not certain as to how to go about achieving a particular thing. There are a lot of iterations as far as their processes are concerned, the teams are concerned, business model is concerned, even the key people are in case of the key people. And the fourth one is that the key success factor in recognizing a startup is that the idea must be viable. It, if it is already working in the existing fields, well, the general term for them is the red oceans, as they call it. If the new venture is operating in the red oceans itself, then generally that is not a preferred kind of a venture for any investor or anybody, because it is already something which is explored and captured by your competitors. And the idea needs to be viable. Of course, the idea needs to be viable. It should not be only an idea, it should be something essential if you want to make it better. And it also needs to generate good amount of revenue. It should have some certain projections wherein they are revenue positive in the near future. The popular examples we all know, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., etc. And the recent one that added to the list is this Byju's. If I'm not wrong, they raised some 350 million in a single investment transaction, which itself is the biggest number, I think, so far after Paytm. So it becomes important when there is so much money at stake, when there is so potential for so much money at stake, and if we are not involved, or if we are not there to handhold those startups into their new journey, then it becomes a sort of a minefield for those startups, that okay, what to step on, what to not step on, they are uncertain if we are not there. So the Startup India scheme, it was basically derived on four pillars, we can say. The experience with the startups which were there before the Startup India scheme. It was not like that there were not budding companies before the Startup India scheme. There were, it was just that we were not calling them startups. We were just saying कि भाई कोई तो है वो जॉब छोड़ के खुद का धंधा चालू किया है वहां पे. So the famous one that is in news recently is our very own Infosys, which was started long back, one of the most successful companies, very trending in recent news. Uh, so there were companies which were there, actual startups which were there before the Startup India scheme. What has been their experience? The importance of startup ecosystem, which was developed in abroad countries, the other countries, especially the United States and the UK and other countries, wherein startups have become the most essential player in day-to-day life of everybody who is living in that country. The third was then to develop this particular startup ecosystem in our country, how to define the particular startup or how to define the particular business, legally speaking. And fourth one, then what are the kinds of incentives that we need to present to these startups to make their life easy, to make any viable idea possible, so that the funds crunch and the cash crunch which is experienced by these startups, it does not become a hurdle in innovation and all those things, because we are a country with 1.4 billion people, and majority of them are young people. So in the near future, if we are looking to generate new employment, if we are looking to generate or raise the per capita income of everybody, having this kind of an innovative system, that or a system that promotes innovation, is essential or has been essential for our country. There is the founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, I mean, he gave a good example of how these startup ideas work. Is that in every 10 ideas that come up at Amazon, they try all 10, and just one of them is successful. Amazon has tried so many things, but now what we look at Amazon is Amazon, the shopping application, Amazon Kindle, Amazon Fire Stick, Amazon Prime, and whatnot. But for these 1 out of 10 ideas that become successful, pay for all the failures and cost of all the 10 ideas that have come up before, all the balance 9 ideas that have come up before them. But a government regulation cannot be an open-ended thing. So they have defined the eligibility conditions for who exactly or what can be construed as a startup. One is that a startup should be a private limited company or LLP. It also stated it can be a registered partnership also, as far as only the Startup India page is concerned. But we will right now restrict it to company and LLP. I'll tell you why in the income tax benefit section. The entity has not completed a period of 10 years. So to call something a startup, it should not be by definition something which is old or something which is entering into its teenagers. It should be, they have restricted the age of the startup to 10 years from its date of incorporation. The third condition, obviously, it cannot be already it cannot be a major player or if it is a major player, then the revenue condition, the turnover condition is that it should not have a turnover beyond 100 crore rupees any of the financial year since incorporation, which is obvious. If a startup is reaching 100 crore rupees, they practically they will not need the benefits that are given by the government, or even if it is less than 100 crore, even if it is 50 crores, let's say, they will find a way to get the benefits or avail these benefits or funding requirements, satisfy their funding requirements in any other way. The fourth key condition, it is working towards innovation, development, improvement of products, processes, and it should have a scalable business model. And the fourth, last one is it should not be formed because of splitting up of a business already in existence, which are quite obvious that you should be innovative, time bound, you should be of a certain size, and you should not be a subsidiary or a group entity of another existing industry group or existing already existing business entity. What we need to understand is that it also speaks of that the business should not be split up, or there should not be a reconstruction of the business to call it a startup. That per se entails that all the investment and all the setup of the startup entity needs to be something which is quite new, or something which is quite new, at least as far as our country is concerned. There are certain open-ended questions which remain out of this definition, is that how do we call something as innovative? How do we say that something is actually a development? Who determines that? And how do we define it? Because as chartered accountants, as auditors, we know that if something cannot be substantiated on paper, then it is not worthwhile calling it. It cannot be proved in a court, or it cannot be proved before any authorities if something cannot be substantiated on paper or in any form of documentation. What is a scalable business model? A scalable business model is something which can be repeated geographically easily, and it can also be repeated on a larger economical background. It cannot be restricted to any certain geographical area or a particular region. Let's say if some startup is coming up with some service in specifically for Mumbai region, and it cannot be applied to any other area easily, let's say Ahmedabad or Pune or any place, then it cannot be said to be a scalable business model right out of the bat. They need to change that business model to adapt to other cities, adapt to other regulations of those cities. That is actually where we come in, that the actual operations team or the actual people who are doing the creative thinking for their particular business, they may have lots of ideas how this will work, how we will deliver something to a customer. The delivery may be of any service, it can be of a product, it can be anything. How do we deliver it to a particular customer or a user of our products? And how are we going to generate money out of it? How they will pay us, how that tie-up is going to be, and this and that. What they miss out on is the actual, how do we put this to a paper? How do we create a business plan? We have seen, I mean, throughout our old practices, the conventional practices, we do some project finance work, this, that. We have experience of writing project reports. We need to grow or evolve from writing those simple project reports for regular finance into writing a business plans for these startups, putting it to paper. Because if the startup wants to introduce any professional capital into their business later on, if something is not put on paper properly, if something does not look or come off properly of the documentation that you have submitted, regardless of how viable that venture actually is, many a times it results in losing out the opportunity to get that professional capital involved in that business. That's where actually we come into picture. We have quite extensive experience with documentation, how to put things to paper, how to present the plan which is viable. If the plan we ourselves are raised or trained with professional skepticism, that if we criticize the plan wherever necessary, and we will advise the startups and handhold them into tweaking that plan, maybe changing a particular process to suit the revenue needs, to suit the uh, whole financial modeling, while remaining in the four corners of law. And the last one is obviously potential for employment generation and wealth creation. That is something essential, something crucial for any business venture. If you are not going to result in any employment generation or wealth creation for the economy, then there is no reason for why the government should grant you any benefits. So these are the few key things that we should keep in mind while advising to clients, and while telling them, okay, when we are consulting to you as far as startups and everything is concerned, these are the key things that we are going to deliver on, that these are the things that we should be involved in, and this is the value that we are going to add to your business because of this. Now we come to the important part, the Startup India recognition. DP, it is covered by DPIIT, Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. Startups have to apply to DPIIT for recognition as eligible startup. So DPIIT is the owner of the Startup India project of the government. Now, as I said, the whole intellectual property domain was also transferred to DPIIT, and the Startup India recognition was also given to DPIIT. That facilitates a smooth flow of communication and information between all the departments relevant for making a new business grow. The application for registration has to be done online on the startupindia.gov.in portal, which is a standard Startup India portal. What we need to understand is there are two types of registrations which we are talking over here, that many a times it is misunderstood that if you are simply registered on the Startup India portal, then you are right away eligible for claiming all the income tax benefits as well for your entity. But that is a misunderstanding. There are two types of, or rather two steps of registering your startup on the Startup India portal. The first one is this one, the DPIIT recognition. And the second one is the recognition under Section 80 IAC of the Income Tax Act, which is the section that defines what is an eligible business. We'll come to that 80 IAC in the later part of our presentation today. So DPIIT recognition. How do we do this? The steps involved in this registration are quite simple. I have tried to put relevant screenshots over here so that it is easier for everybody to understand, or when you go and visit the portal, it will be easier for you to navigate through that portal. The Startup India homepage looks like this. We need to click on the human icon over here and click on register. First of all, it is a simple registration process. Nothing crucial is required right away at the time of registration. We need to ensure that the name, email ID, mobile number, the things that we are giving here in the first three items need to be unique. They are not repetitive. In case these email IDs and these are unique, we have had a couple of instances where the portal showed an error message that this email ID is already associated with some other username, some other user account, which is registered as a startup, or which is registered as a mentor, or registered as an accelerator. These fields need to be unique, at least the first three. Password, obviously you can set any password that you want. Once you have done this, you get a mail confirmation on the email ID that you have given. You need to go back with all the password and this and that. You need to go back and click on login. You will be directed to the login page, which looks like something like this. Once you have logged in into the portal, the actual fun starts. There is a dashboard over here which requires you to click on the DPIIT recognition, which is there on the left hand side. I don't know whether you guys will be able to see the mouse pointer that I'm holding over here, but it is on the left hand side in the orange box, the orange button, DPIIT recognition. Once you click on DPIIT recognition, the actual form opens up. The initial part is for this form is quite easy. It talks of the nature of entity, this and that. In this case, if you see the last line, the company incorporation certificate or the company CIN that we put in. If you have filled in the CIN, most of these basic fundamental details are auto-populated on the portal. You need not worry about that. What we need to worry about is the second, third, and fourth part in this initial entity details, the industry, the sector, and the categories. Why is it crucial? Is because these three line items will determine what is the exact industry specification that comes on your Startup India recognition certificate. Once you are done with filling up the form, once they raise any queries, once you have solved all those queries, there is a certificate that you get. On that certificate, what is mentioned is these three particular categories: industry, sector, and the categories in which your startup operates. Basically, to define the boundary of operation under which this particular Startup India recognition was done by your company. If, let's say, the client is working on some aggregator concept, let's say, for argument's sake, if the client initial idea for that client was that they are going to start as some sort of aggregator service for any local service that is available, any food delivery system, pharmaceutical delivery system, whatever, and the plan changes later on as they are evolving, and the plan then involves to some extent manufacturing or creating that product on your own and then sending it for delivery as well. Then we need to be careful that because in the initial startup DPIIT recognition form, we may not have filled up the actual manufacturing part also as a part of this industry, sector, and categories. So as the plan evolves, we need to ensure that either that evolution is in line with what we have filled in, or in case it is not in line with what we have filled in, we need to explore ways how we can amend this particular application form and see to it that it is aligned. If it is not ultimately getting aligned on this, then we need to make sure that these two businesses, in our example, aggregator business and the actual manufacturing business, they remain separate. And as far as books or everything is concerned, they remain separate entities. So that is the precondition. That is the importance of having filling in proper industry, sector, and categories over here. We get the basic details, PAN, WAN, this is okay. Full address for communication, obviously, this needs to be the same as, ideally the same as the address which is given on the certificate of incorporation. Now, name of authorized representative. The authorized representative can be anybody. It can be a director in the company. It can be a manager, employee of the company. It can be an outside professional who is filing this particular application on the company's behalf. It can be anybody. What we need to be careful is that when we are authorizing or before we are filling this form, there is a format for letter of authority, which is given on the portal. That particular format needs to be filled up on the letterhead of the company. It needs to be signed by the person who is getting the authority, as well as one of the board members who is allowed to give that authority on behalf of the company. Also, we need to upload the self-attested Aadhaar cards of both the people who are doing this giving this power of attorney and receiving this power of attorney. Next one is important, directors, partners, details. There are lots of cases where director details are added afterwards. There are lots of cases where directors are removed afterwards. We need to ensure that these cases are updated on the portal to the extent possible, to the extent it is allowed, or at least at the time of initial, when you are filling up the form for the first time, we need to ensure that proper details are filled in. The mobile number, email ID must be unique for this. And believe me that they cross-check the director details with the ROC website, the MCA website. When we file this application, when we go down and submit this application, all the details which are submitted by us as to what this company operates in, what is the main objects, this and that, they are cross-checked by the DPIIT against the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. We have had a few queries from the DPIIT saying that, okay, ये आपने ये 4 लोग का नाम लिखा है, but there is also a 5th person. Or if these 4 are not there, there are only 3 which are there in your board of directors. Please update the application accordingly. So they are that strict. So we need to fill this properly. The information required, the 4 categories over here are a bit crucial, and especially crucial because when we go to the ATISC recognition, it becomes more relevant. The 4 categories that are there are ideation, validation, early traction, and scaling. What ideation briefly means is that the business still has the idea that, okay, ये ऐसे हो सकता है. They are yet to put it down to paper, या फिर उसका actual operations, pilot projects they have not started. Any physical activity they have not yet started. There is simply an idea. The second stage is validation, that they have built a minimum viable product. They have called it MVP. Now, minimum viable product, it can be a pilot product. It can be the beta level application for any IT company. It can be an initial release, alpha release on the Play Store, App Store, anywhere. If you have created something, if that business has created something, then it comes under the validation stage. The third one is early traction. You have crossed the validation stage. You have realized that your product is working. In App Store, in Play Store, your product has had sufficient downloads, let's say. There have been quite a few subscribers. There have been quite a few money exchanged transactions which have happened, which involve actual exchange of money on your particular application or a particular product that you have developed. And it is just a matter of expanding your product to new markets, new geographies, new customer base. That means you are in the early traction stage. And the fourth one is the scaling stage, that even though you are generating sustainable profits out of your business, and it is just that you need to scale. Now sky is the limit, that you need to scale your business on a higher level so that it becomes available to everybody. You're on your way to becoming, let's say, a unicorn as far as startup language is concerned. The next thing that they ask is that whether is any application done for any intellectual property rights. Now, intellectual property rights over here is only the intellectual property rights covered by the laws that we saw in the second or third slide, the Designs Act, Patents Act, Trademarks Act. If your client has done any application, even if it is not yet granted, if that application is still not granted, if it is still not cleared, then also we need to mention the application number over here, so that as and when this DPIIT registration is granted to your client, we can have the application fast tracked. At least the query, the troubleshooting, resolution, hearing, there are lots of stages in getting a trademark or getting a patent application. We need to see to it that at least the proper application number details are filled up over here. If your startup has already received a trademark, or let's say any intellectual property rights already, then it actually helps the DPIIT recognition, because it tells the ministry that we already have something with you that is registered as something innovative, something new, some new product, some new technology, which is already recognized with you. That actually helps our application much more. We need to specify what type of innovation we are doing. Are we doing a product innovation, or is the client doing any service innovation, service improvement, or any process innovation? We need to be very careful to select the proper options over here, because in the later parts we need to be a bit more elaborative as to what is the actual development. The documentation part that we discussed early on, this is where that comes into play. What type of process are we following, or what type of service are we improving? What type of goods are products are we making it the more innovative product? Or how, if we are improving those products, what is the exact category, what is the exact stage that we are doing right now? We discussed that this needs to create either employment or it needs to create more wealth. We need to give a summary, or we need to be brief about how exactly is it going to generate employment or generate wealth. Now, it cannot be simply a statement that once this business grows, I'll need 100 people. That cannot be the submission that we do over here. There needs to be rhyme and logic as to what we are writing over here. If, let's say, in one example, IT based services, application based service, the employment generation opportunities are of twofold. One is product development and the actual development team which is doing the product development, and the second one is the service team, which is answering the customer service calls, which is doing the tune ups, updates, backend operations, this and that. That needs to be clearly specified, that it is, we are, let's say we are saying that we estimate that behind every 100 subscription we'll need one service employee over there. So that will, we expect that way that we'll at least need 1,000 employees in the near future, 1,000 employees in right now, some 50, 100 people development team. That logic we need to explain over here, if I'm not wrong, in more than 500 words or something. Now comes the interesting part, the actual startup activities. If we read the first three questions of this point number 6, we will sometimes get confused that what exactly is being asked of us. That what is the problem the startup is solving? How does your startup propose to solve this problem? And what is the uniqueness of your solution? Normally, when you ask a client that, Baba, what is the uniqueness of your solution? What is the problem we are solving? And even any one of these questions to the client, normally the answer will contain answer to all three of these questions. They bundle it up in such a way that the answers are not distinguishable from each other. What we need to do is we need to understand what is exactly asked in there. The first one is, what is the problem that the startup is solving? Many IT-based companies, if you come across an IT-based client, the general problem they would be able to solving, they would target solving is organizing a market which is generally unorganized. That is something which Zomato, Swiggy, they have done. They have organized the food delivery market, which was more or less unorganized. Every restaurant had to have its own delivery people. They would charge their own delivery charges. But what they did is they went and aggregated all that. The same with Uber and same with Ola, that they have organized a market which is heavily unorganized and created an opening over there. So the problem that they are solving is they are organizing a highly unorganized market. The problem that your client may be solving, it can be of technical nature, it can be of any ultra technical problem between some manufacturing industry, some chemical, some software, anything. It can be anything. But believe me, the DPIIT, even if you are not able to generalize beyond a line or beyond a particular point, if you're not able to generalize what the problem is, believe me, they have people that understand what you're saying. They have access to all those ministries. We were surprised in case of one pharma based startup that came across. We were surprised to find the very pointed queries that they raised in case of the new product or in case of the new service that the company was coming up with, because they have access to all the other ministries, they have access to all the relevant people in the ministries who have this technical knowledge. So if you are not able to generalize beyond the point, don't worry, they will understand, or they will find a person who understands what you are saying. The second one is, how does your startup propose to solve this problem? So the solution that you're bringing in, if you're aggregating all the delivery walas, then how do you plan on aggregating? How is it that you plan to tie up with all the restaurants? And or how is it that you're innovating a particular process? That how is more important over here. That will result in solving the problem. That is the generally in internal audit, we do this root cause analysis for a particular issue that is come across for a client. That is the root cause analysis, and the solution, the recommendation that we give, that ideally in that language it should come in the second question. The third one is, what is the uniqueness of your solution? The uniqueness of solution, people forget that in this need not be in the operational terms. If you have been it can be any your intellectual property right that you have, it can be a trade secret that you have, it can be a customized code, computer code, self-evolving artificial intelligence that your client has developed. It can be anything, something unique which will generally not get copied easily by anybody who is a competitor or a player in the market industry. Because normally what we see is, if any startup comes up, there are 3 or 4 other startups that pop up around that particular company who are following the same kind of business model. We have seen that with in our case also, we have seen that with tax filing softwares. Then the initially, let's say there was only one kind of that ETDS solution or Winman. They were the initial, or in case we were using Tally, we were predominantly using Tally initially. But once people realize that this is working, about this kind of solution is working, many new competitors have come up in the market who challenge the current position of the current player. So that needs to be mentioned in the third part. What is the thing that makes you a bit unique from the other players in the industry, wherein it cannot be copied by others? If you have seen, I mean, if you're just been curious, if you see, if you're aware of that show called as Shark Tank, something like that, many a times it all the deals or everything that boils down to this very question: what is it, the uniqueness, what is the IP that you have you patented that particular IP, or etc. It comes to that. So that is what we need to mention in the third question. Fourth one is, how does your startup generate revenue? The first 3 is fine, you're solving a problem, that's okay. But ultimately it is a business. You are not doing a charity, or you're not just an R&D center. It is a business. How do you plan to make money? How is it that you plan to take that startup to a new level? How is it that you plan to make profits out of this particular business? That is the question which is asked in the fourth one. That needs to be very particular. I mean, we are I would say the right person to answer this question, that how that money will actually flow, how we are going to utilize the money, how that startup will make profits ultimately. So that makes the question number 6 over here the most crucial one, wherein the documentation and elaborate answers need to be given. The last one is self-certification. The incorporation certificate or the registration certificate needs to be uploaded over here. I think recently they have added one more option over here, which talks about the uploading of letter of authority that we spoke of. And obviously, if there is self-certification, once you've self-certified, you need to submit. And once the form is submitted, once there are not any queries or not any observations which are raised by the DPIIT, then the client will receive a registration certificate from DPIIT, which looks something like this. It is a certificate of recognition. This, what we mentioned is that this is a certificate that we receive for a client which was working in application development. So this is the app certificate wherein the industry and the area of work was mentioned. The date where it is valid up to is by default 10 years from the date of incorporation of your certificate, as it was mentioned on the certificate of incorporation. So this completes the first step of recognition for a startup. So this is the startup getting recognized on the Startup India portal. We discussed that to get the tax benefits, there is an additional recognition which needs to be done. But what are the benefits that the startup will be able to avail simply by virtue of getting registered or getting this particular registration itself? So these are a few incentives which are available to the startups. So income tax, ATIC, to get that ATIC registration, having this registration is a precondition. The second one is fast tracking of the patents and trademark applications. We discussed that DPIIT only governs the IP protection and all those cases nowadays. So if you already get registered as a startup and if you file a fresh application, then we can request on the portal itself that the particular application may be fast tracked by the DPIIT. Raising of funds. There are lots of liquidity solutions which are offered on the portal, many schemes. The prominent ones being the SIDBI one, wherein they give concessional rate of interest, maybe all sorts of solutions, fund-based, non-fund-based, at reasonable rates for the startups. Then there was one more particular fundraising solution which was there. It was called the Fund of Funds for startups, which if I remember the publication correctly, it had some 10,000 crores of some funds that was ready to be disbursed for eligible startups. So 10,000 crores, okay, on totality basis, it is a big number. But even if a startup receives an initial fund of, let's say, 50 lakh rupees, that 50 lakhs is a big number for a new company. They can start their own venture. They will not need ideally, they will not need new funds for quite some time. So getting access to those funds, those funds are open once you are registered as a startup on the DPIIT portal. Many of the government tenders that are available, even if you see the our own Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, that capacity development, if I'm not wrong, the Capacity Development Committee, maybe Manish Bhai or Preeti Madam will be correct me if I'm wrong, that Capacity Development Committee that is there, it gives us information as to various tenders which have come up for chartered accountants or CA related any consulting which requires anywhere. That tenders are published on that particular website. Those tenders have some preconditions that you need to be 20 years registered, this and that. Same, and there is a precondition for earnest money deposit, EMD. All the other government departments also have these kind of conditions, if not even stringent conditions. If you're a registered startups, there is a waiver to these prerequisites, if not completely, at least partially. There are relaxation as far as EMDs are concerned. Many at times the EMDs are completely waived also for registered startups. You also get access to government e-marketplace. You need to register separately, but if you have already registered startup, the DPIIT registered registration certificate, then it becomes a very fast track application for registering on the GEM portal. ROC has given an option of easy winding up. Now, many people will think that how is easy winding up a benefit which is or incentive which is given to startups? We need to acknowledge that, as I earlier mentioned that example, that 1 out of 10 ideas works normally. What happens to the 9 other companies which have come up with this idea and who have registered their own startup and have been recognized under DPI? It becomes a burden to have that compliance going on even after you know that this idea may not work, the model is not viable, or if any new law has come up which prohibits some trade or some kind of development. So having an entity and having that compliance cost may at times become a burden. So ministry has given an option that, okay, if you're a registered startup, we will have a easy winding up procedure for your entity should things not work out. You also get access to incubators, mentors, and accelerators. Incubators, we discussed in the earlier that there are 4 stages. Now, incubators come under the second stage, the validation stage, wherein you need the help of other conceptually driven people who are there in your same zone to help you, guide you through your particular journey. There are mentors who are available to you, mentors who are specializing in a particular field. It can be a legal field, it can be marketing field, it can be fundraising field, it can be any technical field, IT based field, application development, it can be anything. A mentor is somebody who is expert or has substantial experience in a particular field. An accelerator is somebody who helps you scale up your product or scale up your business on a larger scale. So accelerator would generally come into picture in the later stage of those businesses. These kinds of outside parties, they are already registered. There is a separate registration for these guys in addition to a startup registration on the Startup India portal itself. You can simply go ahead and search for any mentor, incubator, or accelerator in your region, and you will be granted access to those people on the Startup India portal itself. Plus, there are many state subsidies which are given. Statewide subsidies are different from state to state. Schemes are different from state to state. Many states come up with their own incubators to promote local employment, to promote local growth. If I'm not wrong, in Maharashtra has come up with an IT incubator somewhere in Solapur or Satara to promote the development and employment over there. You can check out, there are more than 100 200 schemes which are available on the portal state to state. That will help us advise the client or make their liquidity or make their life a bit more easy when they are struggling on operations. It should not be a headache that, okay, additional compliance is also there. So that we can help out as far as subsidies and schemes are concerned. Now we come to the third part, which the taxation part, the income tax part. The income tax has a specific section, section 80 IAC, which deals with what it calls as eligible businesses. Now, application to 80 IAC is a separate application. It is not an application on the portal, income tax portal, thank God, but it is an application which is to be made on the Startup India portal itself. We will see that actual application. It is quite thorough, exhaustive, and normally this application is advisable to be done when your business is in the 3rd or 4th stage of development. That is the early traction and scalability, that scaling stage. If your business, if your client's business is in those stages, then it is advisable to go for this. I will come to why. ऑब्वियसली इनकम टैक्स को कोई ऐसा बेनिफिट बिना कोई कंडीशंस के तो देगा नहीं. दे विल हैव सम कंडीशंस, restrictions, and some obviously documentation to be done. There is certain compliance that needs to be done post receiving the approval, and some word of caution for that. That is how we will go through this. Now, first of all, what is ATIAC? ATIAC, simply speaking, in layman's terms, what they give in all the generic, when you go and Google section ATIAC, the first generic search that comes, ATIAC is a tax holiday kind of a section for eligible startups. Now, startups can get ATIAC. It's not so simple. Though partially correct, ATIAC is a sort of a tax holiday section. It is available to your startup within the first 7 years of from the 7 years of application, or within 10 years of date of incorporation, whichever is earlier. What ATIAC goes to do is, ATIAC defines what is an eligible business. Being in the 80s sections, it draws a corollary from ATIA, ATIB, ATIC, and other sister sections. There is a separate application that needs to be done on the Startup India portal, and all some documentary, some new kind of documentation we need to develop to get that ATIC registration. First one is called, you need to upload a video of what your startup is on either YouTube or on video sharing platforms like Vimeo. Also, we need to prepare a pitch deck for the startup. Now, pitch deck is also a term which was subsequent to coining of the term of startup. Pitch deck banane ka. Now, generally, colloquially speaking, pitch deck can be anything. So it can be something to attract customers, it can be something to attract investors. Basically, what we say in our companies, that when we raise, do a share listing, we need to prepare a prospectus of sorts. A pitch deck is more like a very, very, very abridged form of prospectus. So what we are doing, what is the vision, why are the funds required, who are the people, and some key factors about, or key conditions about the product. The last one is CS certified financials. If your startup client is a company, obviously there will be audited financials available for the company. But in case if your startup is not a company, but if it is an LLP, we know that there are certain relaxations as far as audit of LLP is concerned, financial audit. But if you are applying for this ATIAC registration, the LLP also needs to get their books audited. The word over there used over there is CS certified financials. Now, we as chartered accountants appreciate the difference between what is certified and what is audited. It's the same difference between true and correct and true and fair. So under a normal audit of financial statements that we undertake, it will not be true and correct, but rather it will be true and fair, which follows or adheres to the guidelines given under the standards on auditing. So I'm assuming that CS certified financial, even for a company, would mean that these are audited financials. So along with the CA certified financials and audited financials, there are certain other documents that need to be uploaded on the portal. One is the Memorandum of Association for Private Limited, or the LLP deed for LLP. Board resolution, if they have passed any. The annual accounts, as we discussed, the CA certified annual accounts, in the whole income tax returns that are uploaded for the last 3 financial years. ITR acknowledgement copies. I mean, if we are uploading the income tax returns for the last 3 financial years, might as well upload one more paper of ITR acknowledgement on that. And the last two are we discussed startup video clip and pitch deck for startup. There is substantial guidance which is given on the portal itself with respect to what needs to be uploaded on the startup video clip, what needs to be uploaded as a pitch deck for the startup. I mean, I'll just show you on the portal where that link is. It is quite thorough. There is not much of a room for guesswork, which is on the documents which are there. And it needs to be in that order itself. Okay. The memorandum of association or the LLP deed that we are uploading on the portal, it needs to be the latest one itself. As we mentioned, as I said earlier, that the DPIIT checks the data with Ministry of Corporate Affairs simultaneously. And if we have uploaded certain memorandum of or articles of association which were not the latest ones, or which were different from what has been uploaded on the MCA portal, you can be rest assured that the startup will receive a query saying कि बाबा ये this is not the latest one, latest वाला upload करो पहले. So those people actually check. It is not like the automatic route which is available in many of the cases. Those people actually check what has been uploaded on the portal. On the Startup India website, once you have logged in, we saw that there is a dashboard button on the left hand side. Once you click on that, below the initial recognition, you can read that in the first table on the right hand side, it says that recognition has recognized a startup by DIP. Only and only when that particular status is appearing on that table will the below link be open, the Form 80 IAC on the portal. Once we are ready to file that application, we need to click on apply now. Once we have click on apply, the initial information is the same as we saw in the Startup India portal. The name, CIN, date, nature of business, this and that. Again, the nature of business needs to be the same for which the DIPP registration was granted, and the DIPP number. Most of the things get auto-populated over here because they are directly pulled from your Startup India registration. Contact details, permanent account number, and below we have the option to upload these MOA, AOA, and LLP deed for the startup. Over here, they have given the screenshot over here reflects that only 2 years of ITR and 2 years of financials need to be uploaded, but that is not the case. The company for which we were filing this application was incorporated in financial year 1920. So that's why this is only 2 years. Had the company been older, the third year would also be available for us. These obviously need to be CA certified, CA audited. We need to ensure that we are uploading our audit report as well on this as a matter of prudence, because our audit report along with the UD and everything, it carries more weight and better clarification as to what is the exact procedure that we have done as auditors. Key audit matters, everything gets properly reflected and communicated to the portal. The next one is the startup video link. Now over here, many people will be skeptical that why do we need to give a startup video link? How do we need to prepare it? Don't worry. The link given below, toolkit for video link, it opens or it gives you a PDF file wherein they have given an exhaustive checklist of what all things need to be mentioned. And for specific industries also, such as IT industry or application developer industry, they have given specific guidelines that since your product cannot be explained by as a product, physical, tangible product, how are you supposed to give a walkthrough of your product when you are going for this ATIC registration? The video needs to be at least 5 minutes long, but not too long. They restrict it to, if I'm not wrong, 5 to 7 minutes. Normally, it should contain the vision of the founders, as we saw, the problem that they are trying to solve in the economy, and the key people who guide us through how your product works. On YouTube, if you're uploading the video on YouTube, many people will feel that, okay, it is a publicly viewable thing. So in case of any trade secrets, or in case of anybody is willing to look into it and copy the code, maybe copy the product, copy the process, how do we do this? There are many other sites such as Vimeo, wherein these videos can be password protected, and that link can be given here. The guidance as to how to upload it and how to have that password on Vimeo is also given in the ATIC video guidelines. So don't worry about it. Uploading pitch deck. In similar fashion, pitch deck also needs to be uploaded. Whatever figures, whatever calculations, and what is your ask, what is the startup's ask as far as benefits are concerned, and why people would be investing in your startup, that needs to be uploaded, written properly in the pitch deck, and uploaded on the portal. The pitch deck guidelines are also quite exhaustive, quite thorough. Now, it is not going to be as simple as you submitted on the portal, the ATIC application, and you have received the registration clearly. There will be a lot of to and fro between the ministry, the income tax department, maybe, and your company. All the clarifications that are there need to be filled up over here on the company letterhead, that browse icon that we are seeing over there. The next feed are quite common. Once we click on submit, the application finally goes over there. If after all filling up the application, after creating the video, after creating the pitch deck, there is the final communication that you get as a registered startup is the certificate of eligible business, that your company, your business comes under the definition of eligible business as given under section 80 IAC. Every certificate number is unique. Every industry specification that they have done is unique. And obviously it carries along with the disclaimers which are given in the later part of this document. Under the previous income tax portal, if everybody remembers, in the my account section for a corporate login, there was an option to provide a DIPP certificate reference number over there. So I don't think that this functionality is still made active on the new portal, but this is the kind of arrangement that income tax also has with DIPP. If you upload the proper certificate number and date and everything, it will be easier for you going forward to claim all the ATIC benefits that are available for the startup. Now, what happens when you get the ATIC registration? So ATIC simply, the subsection 1 says that a deduction of an amount equal to 100% of the profits and gains derived from such business for 3 consecutive assessment years. It is the same language that is there for ATI, ATIB, ATIC. The second subsection says that the time limit is any 3 consecutive assessment years out of 10 years, beginning from the year in which the eligible startup is incorporated. We can trigger this benefit of ATIC for any 3 consecutive assessment years out of the first 10 years. That is the crucial part. That which 3 years do we take up for getting this ATIC benefit? I'm not talking about the other income tax benefits. Now we are restricting ourselves only to ATIC. The other benefits because of the ATIC or the preconditions are as the condition for any startup claiming the benefit are the same as ATI, which is it should not have any previously used plant and machinery. It comes with an asterisk if your plant and machinery is something which is imported from abroad, which was maybe used primarily in already for some function or some manufacturing abroad, it will not be covered under, it will be covered as a new plant and machinery. Undertaking should not be a subsidiary. Obviously, it was one of the preconditions for the Startup India registration, that it should not be a spin-off. It should not be related to any existing business. It should not be a subsidiary. Audit report in similar fashion of 10 CCB needs to be filed. We know that 10 CCB is required for any ATI, IBIC benefit the plant is drawing. We may have faced many scrutiny for a plant which is set up in, let's say, excise benefit section ATI, B, maybe Baddi or any other location. If the startup eligible business gets amalgamated into another company, then all the benefits will get cancelled for the previous year when the merger took place. So thankfully, till the date of the year in which, till the year in which the merger took place, the benefits which were available for the eligible business are still will be still available. But if you merge with another entity or merge with another business on your own, then the company is going to lose all the benefits of Startup India. This becomes crucial when you are advising either your startup or your own client who is looking to acquire a startup to verify the projections that the startup has given. The startup or the particular vertical cannot have a separate set of tax benefits after it is merged. So that kind of accounting or that kind of projection we need to put in place before we go and value a particular company. So that needs to be kept in mind. And arm's length condition is there for services and goods which are transferred between other businesses. Similar to our transfer pricing provisions, an arm's length condition is put in place if your business also has, if your company also has another business or another segment which is not covered under the eligible business section. It may cover your manpower cost, management charges, segregation of any utility bills, etc. So that can be a pain point that we need to explore for each and every client as we go ahead. And the first proviso to section 79(1) was introduced. We all know that section 79 or we all know that if in case there is a change in shareholding of a company, of an assessee, wherein the 51% shareholders as on the previous year are not the same in the next financial year end, then the company will not be eligible to carry forward the losses, or there is a proportionate carry forward of losses in certain cases. Now, this logic cannot be held true for, especially for the startup ecosystem. Startups have to raise funds by any means possible. It can be a debt which they are taking up, it can be a loan, but many a times the venture capitalists or professional capitalists, they infuse funds by way of equity into the company. And 51% of the shareholding may not remain constant afterwards. So having this precondition of section 79 was a big detriment, having a bit detrimental effect as far as investment into these businesses was concerned. So they introduced the proviso to 79(1), which says that if your entity or your business is an eligible business, which is defined under section 80 IAC, then you will be allowed to carry forward those losses. Even though this 51% shareholding condition is not met, you will still be allowed to carry forward your losses. So it is a welcome provision, a good thing that they have introduced. So the one crucial point, one point of differentiation is that, see, the definition or the eligibility condition under 80 IAC that they have given, that amalgamation into another company may result into cancellation, this and that, merger took place. But it does not have any bearing on the carry forward of losses. So that kind of combination maybe we can explore when we are advising a client on a particular target company, or when we are pitching on behalf of a startup company to a particular investor for a merger or any type of transaction. Yeah. So there is some added compliance when you get registered under 80 IAC. The first one is getting the books of accounts audited from a chartered accountant and audit report in the form of 10 CCB to be filed before the tax audit due date, which is quite simple. There are separate schedules in the income tax return utility, for which earlier there were schedules SH2 and AL2, which are applicable specifically for recognized startups for eligible businesses, which require you to give a detailed breakup of all the share purchase, share sale transactions which have happened in the company during the previous year, on which value it took place, on which date it took place. And they will obviously cross-reference all these transactions against the returns which are filed by the investors in your company. So that accuracy needs to be kept while filing the company or LLP's ITR, and as well as filing the ITR for the investor in that case, or the initial promoters, and keeping the separate records for eligible business from other business. Normally in a startup, this will not be a headache in the initial stage, because all they are focused on is the eligible business itself. They will not be focusing their energy or efforts into getting into other businesses, other verticals which are not recognized. पहले ही business का थोड़ा tight चल रहा है तो दूसरे में कौन जाएगा इसके लिए. So, but as the startup matures in the later part, maybe after year 8 or 7, maybe there will come a need to have a segregated books of accounts for for any number of segments that they have eligible businesses. Then there may be an added scrutiny at the time of assessment. Yes, there is 80 IAC benefit. We will see that there is an angel tax benefit, section 56 benefit, which is available for these startups. But we all know that even if the government will grant us benefits, we are not exempted from justifying how we are eligible for that benefit. Even though prima facie we may be, the client may be eligible for those benefits. It may result in additional compliance cost. It may result in additional litigation cost for the startup in question. Right. So angel tax, we all know that recently angel tax was also one of the scare tactic for venture capitalists or others while investing into startups. What angel tax basically meant is that the valuation of a company, let's say normally the face value of any startup will be negative in the initial years, that the startup will be burning a lot of cash to do their R&D work, to do their marketing work, to have more employees work on them. What actual value of that startup is that the idea of the business, or what is the potential market for those business. If you have attended any seminar on valuation or anything, they will always separate between the valuation to be done for a startup vis-a-vis the valuation to be done for an established business. So the rules are different when it comes to funding or valuing a startup, but the provisions are the same when it comes to a big company and a startup which is getting funded. So the government recognized that this kind of injustice is happening, and they said, okay, if your startup is an eligible business recognized under the definition of 80IAC, then your company will have the relief from angel tax scrutiny, that you will not receive scrutiny or the parameter point under 5627B. If you have already received, you will need to submit the documentation and get it removed from the limited scrutiny parameters. But obviously, along with this 5627B exemption, there comes certain additional preconditions that the company, cannot invest the funds which are raised into land and building for residential houses. What many of them did was they raised funds and they transferred the house or the location from which they were operating the business into the name of company, and they took those funds in their own pocket. So you cannot do that. First of all, you cannot advance any loan, or you cannot give any kind of capital contribution. That is, you yourself cannot invest in any share securities subsidiaries. You also cannot invest in jewelry as well as any vehicle which is costing more than 10 lakh rupees. There is a proviso that if this is your business, if this is the nature of your business, you are allowed to do that. But in normal circumstances, these are the prohibitions that need to be followed. Well, how do we then? It's not so simple. Simply by getting this eligibility certificate, eligible business certificate under 80IAC, do we not get the 56 benefit? There is an additional form which needs to be filed, form 56, which is also available on the Startup India portal, which opens up only after you have been recognized under the 80IAC form. It goes something like this. It is very simple, that what are the details of the company, then what are the there is a declaration form needs to be uploaded in form number 2, and the details of this form number 2 were also available to be filled up on the earlier income tax portal, but I don't think it is now open still now. From the date of filing of this form 2 in self declaration, your company will be eligible for getting the angel tax benefit. The startup will be eligible to get the angel tax benefit. These are the key 2-3 benefits under the income tax, which we can right away tell the client that, okay, if you are eligible business, then you can claim all these things at once you have been recognized by DPIIT, once you have been filed 80IAC. These are the benefits for you. These will ease the cash flow. These will attract more investors. And these 3 years of growth will be the exponential years in which you grow. But it also brings an additional burden of compliance, that it may open up the investor also for a scrutiny. So regardless of whether you are doing this angel tax, taking these angel tax benefits or 80IAC benefits, it is always better to have a valuation report in place which is compliant with the 11 UA and all those income tax rules. Appropriate disclosure in the owner's details as well in the general schedule of ITRs. In the ITRs, we see that in the general 2 tab earlier, there used to be the holding, the beneficial ownership structure details, which were needed to be given. Those beneficial ownerships, along with schedule SH2 and the details given in the actual investor's personal ITR, they need to be in sync. And there is, as we discussed, there is obviously a valuation report needs to be there to justify that valuation. Yeah, many a times, okay, prima facie, this looks quite simple, white and black. But where additionally we can give support is that we need to understand that many a times the funding or the investment that happens, it happens in tranches. There are many holdback conditions. There are many targets that need to be met to get a certain fund from your investor. It is very easy for a operations guy to say, this is my target, this is what I should do, and once I reach this, that fellow will give me this much money. But we know that as far as compliance is concerned, he'll give you that much money. But then we raise questions about how much control are you diluting? How much stake are you additionally giving? Do you have a separate valuation for that? How have you considered this? What type of disclosure you have made in your own personal ITR? What is the disclosure in company's ITR? All those questions will start flowing to you as the chartered accountant, as the consultant to that startup, which will not come into the minds of the actual owner. That we need to be very precise about. And all the professional capital on the investors which are investing in a particular startup, they are generally not there for the long haul. They are there to put their money and exit as soon as possible, as soon as the entity becomes big. So the important part that we play in this is also the exit part of that investor. How are we going to exit that investor? What is the commitment that we are giving? What is the fund flow that we are arranging? So accordingly, the operations guys also have a target in their mind that, okay, we need to do this particular thing to achieve this particular target. And obviously the taxation of the investor once he exits from the particular startup. Right. So some possible issues that come to mind out of all this is obviously the added scrutiny of ATIC deduction. We discussed on that. The second practical problem is the period of 10 years and 3 years, is it really sufficient? Companies like, now this will be an extreme example, but companies like Facebook and LinkedIn, they are still not cash positive. They are still burning a lot of money, but still they are the highest valued companies anywhere in the world. So in a normal sense, if the business environment is not going to support, or if it is going to result in a initial crunch period of more than 10 years on an average, is keeping a 10 years average with a 3-year consecutive period, is it going to be sufficient? Normally a startup flourishes towards the fag end of the 10-year period. So maybe the tax holidays that they get once they have set off all the losses that they have brought forward using the ATIC benefit, the actual tax holiday trigger that they will need to do will actually help the company save taxes only on the later part of the 10-year period. Or maybe if the government kindly decides to extend that period, maybe in that later part, it will be of actual immense help. The third one is demarcation of business. Now, as we said, in the later part, how do we demark between the two segments, or how do we distinguish the costs for the two segments so that they are on arm's length? Who determines that? That becomes a big question mark. And as far as the Section 56 exemption is also concerned, we all know that the startups normally go through many rounds of investment. Now there are seed funding, there is Series A, B, C, D. Then there is also PE capital, which is introduced, professional capital, which is introduced, and then they think of going public with their shares. 10 years, if you look at it that way, 10 years is a very small period for that. So that may be something which may become an issue for the startup. Maybe we can think of requesting the government or proposing that this gets increased in the near future. And why this becomes an interesting practice area is that last I checked on the portal, there were some 55,000 odd startups which were registered, DPIIT registered, stage 1 completed. But of those, only 329 were recognized as a startup by under Section 80 IAC. So that is a huge gap between the total number of registered startups and the tax benefit which is drawn by those startups. That gap can be easily tapped into by us by advising any startup which is already there in our contact as to, you need to explore this, you need to work towards this. the benefits and everything that I have said so far, everything is available on the Startup India website. I am not introducing something which is not there. All these things in detail are available on the portal. All that we need to do is actually visit that portal and have a look at it. And it will clarify most of the things for us, including how to protect IP, right from all that to what is the precondition for tax benefits, everything. On a global level, why this becomes important, the ecosystem, is that the first rank one, the recognized startup ranking.com is the source for this. The rank one is United States with almost 100,000 startups which are recognized. And the rank two is India with 10,000 startups which are recognized. The gap is huge. They are 10 times our economy. I mean, recently I had a word with one of my colleagues that he said that the US market, the stock market and all these capital market, they are worth 30 trillion, whereas we are just reaching 3 trillion, even though we have the population and capacity of many fold of those countries. So this is something which is going to be the next big thing, in my opinion. And everybody should tap into these things as soon as possible. So this was a brief presentation on what I have faced so far as startups, taxation and everything is concerned. I hope it was helpful. And in case of any queries, you do let me know, or you guys have my number. I'm in the same WhatsApp group. Maybe you can drop your queries over there. I'll be very happy to share my experience on that. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, Bapat sir, for such a great session. I guess this 0.7% is much more equivalent to our CA results.
True.
I guess many entrepreneurs should be encouraged. They might come out with some new ideas so that our country is prospering.
True.
Any more queries from the members, please? Anyone has any question?
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Pankaj, I have some queries.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Just a minute. So, sir, may I know if any other benefit available apart from this ATIC, like additional employment benefit, what we get for additional employment?
See, as far as if you're talking about schemes, there are more than 200 schemes which are available for registered startups. And the most important one is that there is a self-certification of labor laws on the initial years. That
Labor laws.
All the labor laws that come under maybe because of Factories Act or maybe because of any employee related provision, that can be self-certified in the initial years, and the entities should not get bothered by any tax official or government official coming to their premises questioning them, ye follow kiya hai, nahi kiya. It is a self-declaration based if you are a registered startup.
Okay. And what is the fees for registering under the section ATIC?
Nothing.
Nothing. And sir, it may be product and for services both, not only product, right?
Everything.
And sir, you told me that it should not be a subsidiary company, but I mean, is it possible that some foreign directors are foreign directors? Is it possible?
There is no condition as far as directorship is concerned, but it cannot ultimately result in being the group entity of another entity by any stretch of imagination. So let's say if your company's name is some XYZ Private Limited, there is a XYZ Inc. abroad. And if at the time of incorporation, you have very clear that this is the business that you're going to go with, there is a low chance that this will get registered as a startup.
Okay, you mean to say directors are common in
directors are common. There may be a trademark as far as the name of that entity is concerned.
Okay.
So if that linkage is established by any stretch of imagination, there is going to be a query and it is going to be hard to satisfy them. If such a apparent query is there, it is going to be very difficult to satisfy.
Okay, you mean to say some companies already outside India and they want to start some business in India, so not possible by any other, by this taking advantage of this scheme.
I mean, you can look at the regulations yourself if you want, but by definition itself, it cannot be a company by way of spin-off or business reorganization.
Okay, it's not okay.
Business reorganization is a very broad term.
And oh, okay, sir. And then one more question. If startup is having some export of services sort of, so is it possible to have this eligibility fulfill?
Yeah.
Not, I mean, उसमें कोई transfer pricing applicability आती है या जो है तो don't, it will not conflict ना?
हाँ देखो अभी वो सामने वाले का ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग एप्लीकेबिलिटी ही है. इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग, ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग threshold is also quite big for abroad transactions with associated entities. So if you are saying that your entity is an associated entity of a foreign party, that itself defeats the purpose, that you are not doing something which is innovative on your own.
But whatever, I mean, services we are providing in India, and it may be unique and, giving employment to Indian citizens also. So that will not help. I mean, that way.
Not help now. That is, you need to go through the struggle. That is the precondition.
Okay. Understood.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you, Shika ma'am, for the questions. And thank you for the great answers. Any more questions, please, from the members? Okay, so then I guess we should towards winding up of the session. So anyone coming forward for the vote of thanks?
Yeah, I will take this opportunity.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for giving presentation on this topic. Very innovative. Because I know this opportunity is new in India, but we need lots of clarification, especially the practitioners. We need lots of guidance when we guide our clients. And your presentation was very much clear, and you know how to do registration, which side to go, what may be the queries which can come in future. So all these practical tips were very helpful. So I would say thank you very much for this wonderful session, very interactive, and it will be very helpful for our practitioner, all the members as a practitioner. Thank you very much, sir, for your time in this session.
Yes, once again, thank you, Bapad sir. I guess definitely it was a very helpful session, step by step, you have shown all the slides where when you're going on the portal, how to register, what are the things which you have to fill up, all the details which have to be applied for. Then after that, you have taken up the benefits. It's a very comprehensive, you have totally shown a picture for startups. So
thank you.
This will serve as a very reference recording for most of the clients, I guess.
Yeah, very helpful. And I think
Proudly we can share this कि आप ये देख लो, आपको सब समझ जाएगा startup का क्या काम है, इसमें ही है.
हाँ, और तो अपने members को मतलब opportunity भी है इसमें, मतलब काम की. They can post the work also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Members, anyone wants to say something? कुछ किसी को एक्सप्रेस करना है कैसा था सेशन? एनी फीडबैक? एनी मेंबर्स सब वीडियो ऑफ करके, आई डोंट नो सच में एक्टिव है कि नहीं, पता नहीं. नो प्रॉब्लम, ठीक है सर. Thank you, sir. We'll wind up the session. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you, Pankaj, and just please upload this video on YouTube also.
Yes.
Very helpful session.
Yes.
I liked it very much.
Thank you, Shika ma'am, for the kind words. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Harsh sir. We'll meet soon. Take care. Have a great day, everyone.